Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins, filling in. Thrilled to be filling in and hosting with you today. Chad will be back toward the end of the week. A much-deserved vacation, let's all be honest, because the news is nuts. And actually, I want to start with what I think is the most important audio. And this is maybe, okay, it's definitely a biased opinion, but the most important audio of the day to me is something that has nothing to do with politics, but it's Dick Vitale, Dickie V, being very, very excited about the March Madness tournament returning after a one-year hiatus. Let's just hear this quickly.
But I like the Zags' chances, man. I like them big time. In fact, I'll go on record saying right now, they're going to pull a Bobby Knight. 1976, they're going 32-0, and they're going to win this tournament. I just think it's unbelievably great that we could sit here and listen to people talking about we are going to have a tournament. I think that's exciting. Yes. I want to dance, man. I'm going to get up and dance, baby. Oh, you kidding me? We got a tournament. Yeah. We got a tournament. Yes, sir. Let's do it, baby. Let's do it.
Come on. I mean, if that doesn't make you happy, if that doesn't make you smile just a little bit, the fact that Dick Vitale, and honestly, pretty much everybody, if you're even a casual sports fan, you take some version of, you pay attention at least a little bit to the March Madness tournament. Maybe you fill out a bracket at an office space, or I don't know. And it's certainly Gonzaga seems to be the favorite to win the entire tournament. They are undefeated, as Dick Vitale points out, and he's very excited to see maybe that have a full run. Illinois, Baylor, Michigan are also top seeds that people think will do very, very well, as is often the case in that tournament. But the surprises are really, honestly, I would love to see this year and this year only a 16 seed win the tourney. I don't know why. I know it would ruin every bracket. That is essentially a team that's ranked as low as possible in any one of the divisions. It would just be incredible to watch that. I think the entire United States of America would rally around a seed that low going that far because of the year we've all had, the last year plus, which is also very odd to think about. It was around this time last year, around March Madness, when the coronavirus truly became something we understood differently as a society, I think. Maybe a little bit earlier than this. There was a lot of people saying that things weren't going to be as bad, not just the former president of the United States, Donald Trump, but a lot of people. Anthony Fauci, Dr. Fauci, at one point had said that we didn't need to worry that much about coronavirus, something he certainly had heard again and again when it looked like a really bad take. And by the way, I do want to say something about that, about the bad take that all of us might have. I might say some controversial things today, and I don't necessarily intend to be controversial. A lot of people are saying that Tucker Carlson right now is a problem, and we'll get to some of that in a second, and your opinion is whatever it is on that. But I think that when we share opinions on shows like this or just anywhere, if you meet somebody in a regular walk of life and you share an opinion on something, you're only able to give an opinion based on the information you have at the time. And also maybe the society standard for what is and isn't okay. As we continue to go back and start to take apart the things that existed in the past, the Dr. Seuss's or whatever it is that in the past was written a certain way, or maybe did some things that now, obviously, we can tell are not the same as what we, the standard we expect today. We have to remember that at that time, those things were, for whatever reason, good or bad, probably bad, more acceptable. It's truthfully, I don't know if I'm now being way too controversial and even attempting to explain that point, but truthfully, that's all I was thinking all day yesterday when I thought about jumping on and doing this show and throwing some thoughts out there about coronavirus or the vaccine or any of the stuff that we know about right now today. I can only give you information and I can only give you my opinion based on the knowledge and the standard in society of right now. And I can't time travel and know what the future will think or feel about the things that I say or do. And I think as we continue to go down the path of what we do and don't censor, what we do and don't take away, the Muppet Show, for example, again, having, I guess, some problematic content in it, that it has a warning now, we have to remember the context of the time period in which these things were put out. Not to say that we agree with the sentiments that are said now. That's totally different. If something is said in a way that obviously in the past was acceptable, but now is no longer, and I can think of several extreme examples of that, that doesn't mean that we have to agree with the things that people said before. But when it comes to comedy, when it comes to entertainment and all the things that are being censored now to a degree that a lot of people feel is Is it appropriate? Or even just honestly, if you look at something more serious like coronavirus, the way in which the development went, we went from a world of understanding it one way to a world of understanding it differently. Obviously, some takes, even those from people that are heroes to people on both sides of the aisle now, or people, I guess, on one side, like Dr. Fauci. You have that problem. You come across that issue that, yes, back in February of last year, Fauci said it wasn't going to be a big deal, a take he obviously wishes he could take back like so many others do. All right, let's get to some of this Tucker Carlson stuff. This has been in the news a lot. People are discussing whether or not Tucker Carlson is dangerous and whether or not there's an operation to take down talk show hosts, an operation from the government. Brian Stelter talked about this on CNN, and I'm just going to play a little bit of Brian because I laugh when I play this audio, when I listen to this. I do think it's really interesting the way in which we're going to attempt, some people in media are going to attempt to vilify other people in media who are allowed to share opinions. The First Amendment gives us the right to say things that we believe to be true. We can't get to a point where we start to censor speech, certainly on places like political news television stations. I think you're allowed to have an opinion on that platform, but let's hear from Brian.
Tucker Carlson is the new Donald Trump. I mean, think about all the ways these two men are similar. Every day, Carlson is throwing bombs, making online memes, offending millions of people, also delighting millions of others, tapping into white male rage and resentment.
Right there. I have to stop already. I have to stop Brian already. I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to take him because honestly, I don't understand this take everyone down that doesn't agree with you mentality, which truthfully seems to be what this is. Tucker Carlson, yes, he says things that are politically one-sided at times. Yes, he does. Does that mean that he's going to have people that love and support the things he say and people that hate them? Yeah, that's the point of political speech, I believe. I think that's why we have a two-party system that disagrees with each other. And if you agree with one side, guess what? People who voted the other way are not going to like you. I think that's something important to remember, too, when we even talk about the election. When we go back to the election and not necessarily the way in which people said that, certain things happened that shouldn't have happened, but just the fact that so many people voted for someone that so many now are comfortable vilifying to a degree that maybe half the country isn't as comfortable vilifying him. And I'm not saying that there weren't flaws in any of the ways in which the Trump administration did things. But you have to look at the coronavirus pandemic. You have to look at the vaccine and Operation Warp Speed to see how easy it is to get a demonstration out there, a good example that no credit at all will be given by the media, by most of the media, I should say, and certainly by the current administration, the Biden administration, for how successful development of a vaccine was from the Trump administration. It is that simple. The Trump administration and Operation Warp Speed helped create the vaccine that now is getting to millions and millions of Americans. That is a simple sentence. Anyone can say it. I can say it, and you can say it. And it doesn't mean that you take away from any of the other things you might have disagreed with. But it's surreal. It's surreal to me the way that this continues to be a struggle by so many people that said that they were, intent on uniting everybody. Right? That was the intention. That was the Biden pitch, is that I will make sure that there's no more partisan politics, which is ludicrous as an idea, but I will do my best to make that a thing. And apparently it's not a thing. After we take a break, I want to play you audio from Chris Christie. I don't always agree with Chris Christie. He's up and down, in my opinion, as far as the things that make sense that he says. But this, to me, is a home run. And he actually had access to a very small group of individuals. He talked to them about why they weren't going to get a vaccine. I think his answer is interesting. I think a lot of that conversation is interesting. And I think it talks about the bigger picture, which is vilify, 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 and don't acknowledge any successes of the guy behind you. That is as political as it gets, Mr. President Biden. Quick break, a lot more. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
Warning, no snowflake zone. Uninformed opinions are in danger of melting. The Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. I've seen this multiple times now on my social media page, so I might as well just play it for you. a voicemail. Oh, by the way, social media pages, you can go to Chad Benson Show on Facebook, Twitter, find us all there. The Craig Collins Show also exists on Facebook, has a very small following. I'd love for you to be a part of it. But there's a voicemail from one friend to, I guess, his buddy, talking about the COVID vaccine, the one that he got. And it's humorous.
Bro, I was in New York this weekend for a wedding, and I got the vaccine, but I guess the less researched Chinese one. But they said that so far they haven't seen any side effects. But if I see any side effects, then I'll definitely let you know. But as of right now, there's nothing that I can see that's a side effect for the vaccine. So if you would like to get one, I can make you an appointment. No problem.
Okay, look, I understand that some people are going to be offended by the humor in that, and certainly by the faux accent that's created there. But this is all over social media for whatever reason, because people are definitely of the opinion that some of these vaccines can and can't be trusted for all different kinds of reasons. Will the vaccine change your speaking voice? No, it won't. Will it do a lot of different things? I don't think so. I just think it's so interesting that right now the conversation we have is so much more about vaccine and whether or not it's effective, the efficacy of it, and how very political that feels. I'm not going to judge you if you choose not to be vaccinated. I'm not going to tell you to do it or not do it on a personal level. Am I going to get one? Yeah. Do I think it's beneficial for a lot of U.S. people, a lot of Americans to get a vaccine now that they're available so that we can go back to normal life for no other reason than to get back to life as we remember it? Yeah, I think that's important. But I do believe in freedom to choose. And if your choice is different than hopefully a lot of people's, that's fine too. Let's hear Chris Christie, though, talk about why he thinks there's a problem here, why he thinks that people are split on whether or not they will get a vaccine, and what really is causing that. It has nothing to do with science, which people on one side of the aisle will always yell science as loud as they can. Go ahead, Chris.
I participated in a focus group yesterday. Just talked to Amanda about it. 20 voters from around the country who don't want to get vaccinated. And why? They think politics is being played by both sides on this. They think that President Trump rushed it, so that makes them suspicious about the vaccine in general. They think that President Biden, by criticizing in his speech this week, President Trump and acting as if the vaccines didn't exist before he got there, is politicizing it too. If we want people to get vaccinated in this country, what came clear from listening to these folks yesterday is we're going to get the politics out of it. You know what moved them more than anything else, George, in terms of being willing to consider to be vaccinated? When they were told that 95% of doctors who were offered the vaccine took it. That moved them. What moved them was them saying nobody died from the vaccine and nobody has gotten hospitalized who took the vaccine. What we need to do now, what President Biden needs to do is resist the partisanship.
Yes. That is, I don't mean to turn into Meg Ryan from When Harry Met Sally, but truthfully, that is what you need to do. And I don't know how much better it could be articulated than that right there. Just acknowledge the fact that Operation Warp Speed was beneficial. To not do it makes everyone watching, everyone that saw the speech last week, or anyone that sees you talk in the future, think of you, whoever you are, not just President Biden currently, but any politician, as a politician first. And at least when it comes to coronavirus and the vaccine, there should be more of an attempt, as much of an attempt as possible, to demonstrate the humanity of yourself and not necessarily the political side of the aisle you're on. It damages no one. It hurts no one to say that Operation Warp Speed was successful. It's very funny to me that in audio that I played earlier, you can hear people afraid of Tucker Carlson running for political office, maybe running for the president of the United States, because of the way in which his sentiments disagree so substantially with people on the other side of the aisle, which is similar to our last president. I don't know if that's what it is. If it's just a fear, if you refuse to give any credit to the guy who just left office because you're afraid that he's going to come back, run again, and win. And that seems to me to be the worst possible reasoning to do something like that. If you want to beat this person, if you want to prevent Donald Trump, former President Donald Trump, from running again, do it in the political arenas. Beat him that way. Don't just do it this way. Don't do it a way in which you pretend nothing he did was successful. That's the other thing, and I've had this conversation with a few friends of mine. If you refuse to acknowledge any success whatsoever by someone that you disagree with, you've become blinded. you just become blinded to the world the way it actually works compared to the world the way you think it works. And we don't progress. We get worse as a society in that world where you just can't see anything. It's every argument is a no because you know that the person is Republican and not Democrat or vice versa. That's dangerous. That's sort of where we are now. It wasn't created by any one person, and it needs to change. And maybe the best way for us to change it is for people who agree or disagree with a certain person to at least acknowledge their success. No better example than that possible than the current president of the United States, who said he was all about bringing the sides of the aisles back together, even after they passed the financial stimulus package the way they passed it, which, by the way, I did kind of want to open the show with money, money, money. You should be looking out for your stimulus if you haven't gotten it yet. If you're eligible to get one, it'll be popping in the bank account over the next few days. At some point, I think we'll probably have to figure out how to pay back all the money that we've borrowed, another $1.9 trillion. And I only laugh because it's a little bit sad, and I don't really know how to make it better. But hey, people got money in their bank accounts now, some who really, really need it. And then a lot of people, I'm a millennial, I'll go ahead and admit this. I've had some friends that unfortunately didn't necessarily need the stimulus that are going to get it, make jokes about how they want to buy Bitcoin. Apparently, Bitcoin is doing very well, or maybe even GameStop on the stock market, and they want to just cash in on those things. So well-spent money for those people that are getting the additional checks from the government to go ahead and throw it at a thing like Bitcoin, although I guess that's probably still valuable to us somehow, right? I mean, that just kicks the stock market up higher and higher. So good on you, millennial, that wants to throw money at it. The retail people that are helping GameStop be such a successful stock right now, which is also kind of weird in and of itself. But this is the world in which we live, people. By the way, this is Craig Collins filling in. Chad Benson will be back toward the tail end of this week. I'll be with you for a few more days. A lot more in store for you. We definitely have to talk about some of the things being discussed as far as the border goes, all in just a bit.
Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. I want to get right to this. I have some audio from Jack Tapper. He was talking to a Texas Democrat, Veronica Escobar, and Veronica was talking about the border. Jack actually asked what I thought was a fairly good question in which he quoted the president of Mexico, AMLO, as he's known to a lot of people, and talked about the border. Now, I first want to play you the question just because I do think it's significant. Usually I'm not going to play a lot of Jake Tapper here, but let's go ahead and get to it.
Let me just ask you, the president of Mexico, López Obrador, said that they see Biden as the migrant president, and so many feel they're going to reach the United States. Is there not a degree to which whatever messages have been sent from the Biden administration, it is encouraging what is happening and is encouraging these kids to come, creating this tragedy?
Now, I'm not going to play the rest of the audio for a second. I want to weigh in first, because that is a well-asked question for a lot of reasons. And the biggest and most important one is the last part, what he mentions about the kids coming to the border. If you're not aware, right now, a lot of unaccompanied minors, that's what they're called, are showing up at the border, and they're being taken care of by the Biden administration in a way that obviously differs from the big news that you heard about years ago when President Trump was separating families. That was obviously a conversation, one in which he eventually changed his mind and decided to do things differently. But here's the problem in all this. It's not necessarily the way in which we treat a child. If a child shows up to our border, there are not a lot of good ways to respond to that situation other than to treat them appropriately, because, again, that's not a fully grown adult. That's a child. And yet that level of of mercy, that level of whatever grace you want to call it, that so many of us, certainly me being a Catholic, and I don't think religion even needs to come into this here, but it should to for some of us make it even harder to turn away people, and certainly younger people. But it makes the temptation too real, I think. And this is something I've said before on radio. I just want you to envision for a second a world in which you live in one of these other countries. You want a better life for your family, but because of certain politics, certain policies that exist in the world, you can't get in. You're an adult, but you have children, and you're tempted at some point to attempt to let your child cross the border without you. That, to me, is as scary as anything else that could possibly. I'm not even a father. I don't have kids, and yet I think I fathom the fear that would be involved. And certainly most of that trek, if you made it with your child before at the very end, staying there at the border in Mexico and just sending a child along the border by themselves. As a parent, I can't fathom something worse than that. And right now, the current administration and the things that are being said out there in the world encourage this sort of behavior because it's almost a guaranteed admission into our country. There's got to be a way to deter that kind of activity, that kind of behavior, to protect children. I know that sounds crazy to some people who start to think, well, wait a minute, no, we can't treat kids bad at the border at all, and we can't. I'm going to, again, reiterate that I don't believe we can do that either, but we can't have any sort of policy about how they won't get in or something might prevent this from being an easy access to our country. And how does that protect children? Less of them show up here. Less of them attempt to make the trek. Less of them ride the beast that is the giant train that goes through a lot of Latin America in order to get you from certain locations all the way to the border. You ride on the top. People die all the time on top of it. It's a very scary thing you should probably Google at some other point. But let's get to it. I took a lot of time responding to Jake myself. Let's hear what a Democrat from Texas feels. And by the way, every single piece of what she's about to say has no connection to the question whatsoever. It just completely shifts and pivots so much that it's ridiculous.
Jake, here's what that kind of focus does. It obscures the bigger picture that many of us, myself included, have been talking about for years.
It obscures the bigger picture that many of us have been talking about for years. Here's what you did. You quoted the president of Mexico, and he asked me a question that had a lot of validity in it about children trying to cross the border. And what you actually did, in my opinion, is you obscured the conversation because we can't talk about that.
The flows, the flow of humanity ebbs and flows. Mm-hmm. As I mentioned, in April, we began seeing, in April of 2020, under the harshest of conditions, a Trump administration and COVID, we still saw people arrive.
Is it weird that she said the harshest of conditions and she mentioned the Trump administration before COVID? Is that weird to anyone but me? Continue.
At our front door.
I'm just quoting the president of Mexico.
No, I got you. But even the president of Mexico, that comment obscures what we have to do.
This might be the new way to disagree with anybody effectively. Just say whatever they said that pointed out some facts that are differing than your facts and maybe proved part of your opinion to be bad. Just say you're obscuring from the point. That's obscuring. That's not connected to what we're talking about here because I don't know how to respond to it because it's a good point. And it is. It truthfully is a very good point and something that we need to find the appropriate response to. You need to find a way to navigate things like the border that I guess don't get you the vitriol that former President Trump got for his no exceptions policy and his separation of families and children, of parents and their kids. And the current administration's version of, well, if you show up and you're a kid, you're getting in, because that's just too tempting. And I don't even mean to vilify everyone who crosses the border the way that you might at sometimes hear. It's not all, terrible criminal people that come across the border. Sometimes it's desperate families. And yet those desperate families should not be sending their children alone across a border of a country that they're not a part of. That's not an activity that should be happening. There has to be a deterrent. You need one. If you don't have one, you have the border as we know it right now. And this is as risky for those kids as anyone else. If you care about the kids, you have to find a way to do this differently. All right, let's move on to some other things in the news. I think that there's some valuable things being discussed. Maybe this is interesting to you. I'm not sure. I have a bit of a conspiracy theory about it. I don't necessarily want to put the tinfoil hat on and start to say that I truly believe that all of this stuff is crap. But this hits weird to me. Dr. Anthony Fauci was on television recently talking about the new CDC guidelines, the new studies that demonstrate that 3 feet of social distancing might be okay. 6 feet might be outdated. Now, why is that important at all? Why do we care at all about the difference between 6 and 3 feet? As you'll hear mentioned here, I believe I kept it in the audio, schools. Schools can reopen much more easily if 3 feet is the guideline than 6 feet. And yet, if this information is just now being discovered a couple months into a Biden presidency and not during a Trump administration, it's odd to me. It's odd that so many of these back and forth things, the touting of science from people on one side of the aisle saying that we disagree with what you said, we hate the ways in which you want to handle certain things because you're disagreeing with science. And now for the science to change, yes, is it possible that studies just got more focused on certain things and were capable of proving without any shred of doubt that this is the appropriate way to do it? Yeah, it's possible. It's possible, as I said earlier in the show, that our understanding on things takes time to develop. And yet the way in which this is happening just continues to hit me as odd. Here, let's hear from Fauci.
What the CDC wants to do is they want to accumulate data, and when the data shows that there is an ability to be 3 feet, they will act accordingly. They have clearly noted those data. They are, in fact, doing studies themselves. And when the data are just analyzed, and it's going to be soon. I mean, Jake, you're asking the right questions. And the CDC is very well aware that data are accumulating, making it look more like 3 feet are okay under certain circumstances.
See, I just don't understand, because you can even hear it in his voice, at least I can hear it, a resistance to still actually say it. There seems to be a resistance, at least in my opinion, to still confirm what he is being told on national television seems to be the newest a guideline from the CDC, the newest understanding of coronavirus. He is hesitant to get us to the point where 3 feet is a Dr. Fauci approved distance, and that is just odd. It's just strange. Could it all be coincidence? Is there a significant chance that this is actually the way that science, eventually landed on this sort of thing? Yes. Does anybody who has the tinfoil hat on, maybe a little more than myself, start to wonder why we couldn't figure this out earlier than now when someone else was president more so than anything else? Yeah. You also wonder that quite a bit. I mean, nothing else, I think, demonstrates the bias that exists in the media than the way in which Governor Cuomo had been covered for a while. I know that now Democrats are finally stepping away from him over the last week. You've seen people like Chuck Schumer say you need to resign, and Cuomo not really feeling like that's his cup of tea at the moment. But just the way in which that story took so long to develop was surreal, because you know that if the person had an R in front of their name as a governor instead of a D, the way in which that would have been covered would have been an avalanche of media just begging, pleading, and telling us for the fabric of our society, to protect our society better, this politician needs to go away. Not exactly how it happens when it's somebody on the left. A quick break, a lot more in just a bit. Craig Collins filling in on The Chad Benson Show.
Hashtag me too. Hashtag immigration reforms. Hashtag help. I'm trapped in a hashtag factory and I can't get out. The Chad Benson Show.
This is The Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Happy to be here with you. Chad will be back toward the tail end of the week. I want to play you audio from a virtual court hearing. I know that sounds weird. That pitch is a little odd. But there's this dude in Michigan. He's got a suspended driver's license. He's appearing in front of a judge. And because of the technology that exists right now, and because so many of these hearings are done remotely, he gets to do it on a Zoom conference. And the location he chose to do it from is what causes the judge to be worried about the potential next steps here.
You're also sitting on the driver's side of a vehicle. Your driving privileges are presently suspended You're not supposed to drive either Michigan or in Indiana. I believe you drove to wherever you are in the vehicle you're in, and you're dumb enough to come on video with you.
Yes, you're dumb enough to go on video with you sitting in front of the driver's side. I can't fathom that. I don't understand. Is it just a confusion thing where this guy didn't know how much of the camera was picking up? Like, is that all it is? Or are you sitting in a car with a steering wheel in front of you, having your hearing for your license being suspended? I mean, talk about like people who deserve an award of some kind for just the stupidest things you could have done in the world of Zoom phone conference calls. This guy way at the top of the list. And the fact that the judge is so upset by it is hilarious. The judge ended up putting him on a payment plan to pay off the fines and tickets that he had racked up, and obviously warned him that driving was not something he should be doing while his license is suspended. So, oh man, I love it so much. I love the way that starts off, because truthfully, like, you see that every so often, and I think in the world like comedy, you have like a court hearing where someone goes, and you admitted to the crime like an idiot, and this is when you did it. But this is real life. This is a real life version of a person just deciding, yeah, it's fine. I'll do this Zoom hearing from my car. No one will care. The judge isn't going to care. He's not a cop. Yes, he's going to care. Let's get back to this for a second. I am very happy about it. And actually, you know what? I want to play the Dickie V audio again. The March Madness tournament is back after 1 year hiatus. I assume you'll be filling out a bracket. I know that there will be coverage all over the place as to what the best and worst things to do are to win your office pool. I will tell you this. In the year of 2021, and after the year we just had, go crazy and pick at least a couple Cinderellas that don't have any chance at all, because I believe the entire country will just rally around those teams, and they'll do very well in the tournament if they can win in the first couple rounds, just because of how much it would feel like all of us. That would be the epitome of the world we've all lived in for the last, I don't know, year plus, and the way in which we're trying to get out of it for a team that has no reason, no deserving status, running as far down the table as they possibly can in this tourney. But let's hear from Dickie V, who's just excited that it exists.
But I like the Zags' chances, man. I like them big time. In fact, I'll go on record saying right now, they're going to pull a Bobby Knight. 1976, they're going 32-0, and they're going to win this tournament. I just think it's unbelievably great that we could sit here and listen to people talking about we are going to have a tournament. I think that's exciting. Yes. I want to dance, man. I'm going to get up and dance, baby. Oh, you kidding me? We got a tournament. Yeah. We got a tournament. Yes, sir. Let's do it, baby. Let's do it.
Let's do it, baby. I have to be honest. Gonzaga does appear to be the far and ahead, most deserving, most likely to win a number one seed in this whole thing. And yet I feel like that would be a disservice to the challenges that we all went through to get here. I don't want Gonzaga to win. I don't know if I'm alone in this. I want a team that has no right to be there playing for and hopefully winning a national championship, because it would feel so much better to me. The other number one seeds, Baylor, Illinois, and Michigan, have obviously a very good chance of winning this tournament. There's a lot of other dark horse teams that exist throughout. Loyola is one. I'm from the Chicago area, so a lot of people here are rallying around a team that probably won't go very far. But there's a lot of teams being discussed who have a significant shot at this sort of thing. West Virginia, Oklahoma State. However you fill out the bracket, though, and I truly, truly feel that if this is the year to take the 15 seed over the 2, the 16 over the 1, which is scary, but it has happened now. If you want to do those sort of things, I think that this is the right time to try that out, because there's no way, in my opinion, that it becomes a completely chalk tourney, because I just don't want to see that. I guess I can mention this too, because we have a break coming up in just a little bit, but the Grammys were last night. I don't know if you still pay attention to those, if you care. I know that the ratings go down year in and year out for that, but history was made. Beyonce did win a record. She won 4 Grammys last night, which gives her a lifetime total of 28. It is the most by any female artist in history, or as some people on social media kept very annoyingly saying all night, herstory. Yes, that's true. Her story. She, I guess, is obviously a very accomplished artist who had a lot of videos that seemed to be, and a lot of music that seemed to be very successful this year. But she wasn't in every single category, which I thought was odd either. She couldn't be a runaway winner of all the different big musical categories that, and by the way, The Weeknd, someone you saw perform at the Super Bowl, apparently is boycotting the Grammys forever because he wasn't nominated for any of them. And he's very upset about it. He feels that the way in which they, just did not acknowledge any of the successes that he had make a impossible, I guess, road forward for him. I don't know if that's the right move. If you're someone who feels that you weren't acknowledged by an award body, that you deserved credit, that you deserved the attaboy of at least being a nominee, if not winning some things, to just never go back to that award ceremony doesn't really make sense. Isn't that more of the same? Isn't that just getting more of what you wanted or what they wanted in the first place? If you're saying that they unfairly left you out of something, I think that that's, at least in my opinion, the wrong way to go. Oh, and by the way, the song WAP, W-A-P, was performed live at the Grammys. If you missed it, you can go back and find it on all these streaming platforms, on YouTube as well. It is amazing, and I mean that about as sarcastically as I can, to see that song performed live on television because of the way in which it has to be edited. Even just the performance of it, the dancing elements of it are changed somewhat significantly, as well as, of course, the lyrics. But it's out there in the world if you missed it. This is Craig Collins filling in on The Chad Benson Show.
This is The Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is The Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in, and I'm going to take a big, deep breath before I dive into the world of, I guess, controversy here. Because I'm worried whenever I talk about it that somehow something I'm going to say is going to get me into the group of people that are being canceled. But Tucker Carlson is in the news a lot. He's being talked about quite a bit, I guess all the time. But recently, because of this, he had a stance on military, and he talked about some things that people disagreed with. Members of the military stood up and slammed him. Military leaders sort of went after him for the comments that he had made. And it turned into this, what seems to be maybe a political decision by people in power to try to silence some television talk show hosts. And if you agree or disagree with Tucker is not necessarily the point of the conversation. That's truthfully, it's the first thing I have to say. It's the preface needed for any of us to talk about any of this stuff intellectually, is you have to say that the opinions themselves are a little bit irrelevant to the discussion that now exists on whether or not these sort of behaviors are okay. Let's hear from Tucker. He attacked the whole experience himself recently, so we can hear from that first, just to get the word from the guy himself before we go into it ourselves.
Well, it was quite an experience yesterday, being the very first target in the Pentagon's new Operation Silence the Talk Show hosts. Friends called us in concern. Are you guys all right? And for a minute, we'll concede we were almost rattled. Then we realized if the woke generals treat us like they've treated the Taliban, we'll be fine. 20 years later, the Taliban are still here. Maybe we ought to promise the Pentagon that we'll get rid of traditional gender roles on this show, change the pronouns, defeat the patriarchy, and all that. Then they'd send us billions in unmarked $100 bills as a reward. They've certainly done that before. And that might really kickstart our struggling opium poppy business. Something to think about. Anyway, we're fine. So thank you for the concern.
That is Tucker's response to the now it's still very much obviously a talked about situation between him and the military and military leaders. Ilhan Omar also got into the fray. Ted Cruz actually wrote a letter trying to get a better understanding of as to what happened. Ted Cruz, I know a name that you say right now, and some people want to go after it just for mentioning that he still has a job that he's trying to do. But Ilhan Omar said that it's all just hypocrisy. She said apparently Republicans going after the military because of misogyny and a dangerously radical Fox News pundit is just wild and revealing. This is a tweet that she put out there into the ether. Like I said before, these hypocrites do ultimately tell on themselves. What I think is really interesting, more interesting than anything else, is even from Ilhan's point when she tweets out the dangerously radical Fox News pundit, and she's referring to Tucker Carlson, that we start to get into this world where we censor, where we take down, where we remove even just entertainment voices because those entertainment voices are too dangerous. It is an interesting place to get to. And I'm aware of the insurrection. Anyone that listens to the show that might feel like I'm too one-sided when I fill in, well, fine. Okay. I'm aware of the things that happened based on some of the political conversations that were out there in the world. The political speech, as it were, created, certainly a lot of people agree, what happened just a couple months ago. And that sort of thing, violence on the Capitol, is not acceptable. However, the way in which you respond to that, the way in which you fix the problem, is not necessarily just removing our First Amendment right for freedom of speech. Everyone is allowed the beliefs that they have. You are. The most important right of our country is that one, I believe, with every fiber of my being, as I do think most Americans believe. And so if there's someone on a television station who says things that are quote unquote controversial, does that mean that they are dangerous? No, it does not mean inherently that those conversations are dangerous. There are things said just as much, and I know that this happened during the trial of our former president, the second impeachment trial, where you air the way in which people on the left, politicians, talk about fighting and making sure that we can't let certain things happen, it's the same speech on both sides of the aisle. It just so happens that a very small group of people chose to do a very stupid, very bad, very horrible thing, given some of the things that they had heard. And certainly they're now blaming the president in their own trials, their own court proceedings that exist. But it's just so interesting to me that we use any of those sort of examples to potentially get us closer and closer to a very different United States of America than the one we all are so proud to be a part of, a one where someone can be removed from a television show or anything. And actually, you know what? I want to get to this one too. And I again, deep breath. Let's get ready to do it. That one actually sounded a little scared. The Talk, a TV show that I don't watch, I got to be honest, I do not watch it at all, is now going to cancel some episodes after Sharon Osbourne came to the defense of Piers Morgan. This is obviously Piers' comments about Meghan Markle and about Prince Harry, kind of, I guess mostly just about Meghan Markle, though, and what he does and doesn't believe. Sharon defended him on an episode from last week of The Talk. They've canceled episodes of the show to fully investigate what happened. Sharon apologized for the opinion she had on Thursday over the weekend on social media by saying that she was blindsided by the conversation and defended her friend and didn't, I should just quote her actually, to anyone of color. This is Sharon Osbourne on her Twitter apologizing for the comments she made on Thursday where she said that Piers Morgan was a nice guy, that she liked him, essentially. I think that was the most controversial thing she had said then. To anyone of color that I offended or to anyone that feels confused or let down by what I said, I am truly sorry. Sharon continued on Twitter, I panicked, felt blindsided, got defensive, and allowed my fear and horror of being accused of being racist take over. I don't know, and again, pause, get ready for it. I don't know how we have this conversation about Meghan Markle, about the interview she gave, about Prince Harry was the one who initially mentioned this one-off conversation that I guess existed that has made everybody very, very upset, and rightfully so, that some people in the British hierarchy, I don't even know how it works, because I don't think they've acknowledged whether or not it's just some individual who works with the royal family or someone actually in the royal family had said that they were worried about the color of the child, of the expected child from Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. And if the child were black, like his mom, then it might not be something that they'd want within the... It's a crazy, crazy conversation. They essentially didn't want to give him any royal titles on the off chance that he might be minority in appearance, which is surreal. And that is something that absolutely deserves a conversation, deserves a lot more understanding. Piers Morgan said that he doesn't believe them. He doesn't believe that that's true, that two people went on television, said something to Oprah, and they may or may not have lied, among other things. And everyone has now, I think, come to their different opinions here as to just how racist Piers Morgan is for that and maybe other statements he's made in the past. But what I think is truly important here is if you subtract all of those details and just get to the heart of the issue, and I know it's almost impossible to subtract those kind of details, but when you do, people can lie on television. Oprah doesn't swear on the Bible with you. There's not some sort of, you can't be, you can. I guess you can get sued for libel and things, but you can't actually be punished the way that you could if you lied in, say, a courtroom. So it is possible. Did it happen? I don't think so. Could it have happened? Yes. And does someone's opinion on whether or not someone is telling the truth deserve to be treated as if it's inherently racist? I don't know about that. And I say this as a white guy. I'm aware. I'm a millennial white guy that maybe doesn't fully understand the issue, and someone just screamed at the radio, yes, somewhere. But I do believe that we have to take these conversations in layers. And the first layer, the most baseline layer of this entire thing, is that there's a host across the pond getting in a lot of trouble, losing television positions and whatnot, because he doesn't believe what someone else said on television, and everyone else is deciding whether or not that motivation is pure or not, whether or not the reason he doesn't believe someone is because he's secretly something else. And I think that that's so interesting that it comes now to impact The Talk, a TV show here, because of a conversation two people. If you go back and watch the Thursday episode, it doesn't feel controversial in the moment. And I know that people have opinions as to whether or not Meghan Markle and Prince Harry being an important add to this conversation, are telling the truth or not. I understand that our opinions are differing there, are split there, but that's not the entirety of the conversation. And I think it does deserve this level of platform to discuss it. I don't know if I just failed to do it. I probably did. And there's probably a hashtag already asking for me to be removed. And by the way, I want to reiterate one time, just for the safety of myself, I didn't say who I believe or not. I didn't say whether or not I believe, or maybe I did, because I do tend to think that sort of lie would be ridiculous. I don't think that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle jump on television and say a lie that extreme to an Oprah Winfrey, get this much traction on it. I believe a conversation like that probably did happen. And I believe that it's horrible and deserves to be investigated at the highest of powers that exist in the UK. But this whole taking down of shows and removing hosts because they believe differently is a really dangerous precedent for us to continue to set, and one that maybe I've belabored too much now. So quick break, a lot more in just a bit. Craig Collins filling in on The Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show, where we reach across the aisle and occasionally poke someone in the eye.
This is The Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Thanks to producer Phil for sending me this story from Florida. A woman was arrested because she allegedly was performing plastic surgery without a license. I don't know if this happens other places, but it feels just right for Florida. Her name is Alacalira. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Day Rodriguez. She's 56 years old. She was in the middle of performing an operation when police apprehended her. So she's actually in the middle of a surgery. And apparently this all stems from some other guy, a guy by the name of Vincenzo Cirillo, who I guess paid $2,800 for a nose job. I'm not sure that sounds like the right amount of money. And by the way, this is just my first warning out there to anyone. If that's wrong, if that is a very cheap nose job, I haven't looked into the pricing on these sort of things. Never shop cheap when it comes to plastic surgery. If you're going to change your body, alter your body forever, don't get the best price. Don't haggle it down. Find the person who does it really well. Apparently, though, she damaged his nose. She had to perform a second surgery to try to fix the nose. And after the second surgery didn't help, she prescribed him some medicine with another doctor's name. And at some point, this patient eventually is like, wait a minute, none of this is checking out. You can't do the surgery twice, and you're giving me a prescription for some painkillers, but it's not in your name. Do you have a license? Do you have some maybe insurance that you can provide to me so I can go ahead and create a claim? And then she refused to do it. I do wonder if maybe this also is a nice lesson learned for someone like this gentleman. maybe ask for the medical license up front if you have any sort of reservation. If you're meeting in an alley to get a procedure performed, maybe, just maybe, go ahead and ask for the license to be thrown out there before the procedure happens. But it does seem like a horrible case. He told the local news there that she had ruined his life, that she can't do the nose job right, that the medication, as she said, was from other doctors, and she can't find a solution to him. Something is wrong. Something has to be wrong. That's what he told the news. She has been charged with practicing medicine without a license. She has been held on a $5,000 bond, which I think she probably has been able to post. But it is a crazy story, a surreal story. And I guess it just makes you one more time remember that even if you're going down the rabbit hole of getting a plastic surgery of some kind performed on yourself, make sure that you're doing it with someone that is probably just not go to Florida. I know I just judged a whole state. That was wrong. I apologize. But there feels like there might be a little more risk there than other places. I know this show is on in Florida, too. I apologize again. I want to shift gears to some more medically happy news. This is happening a lot. You're seeing on social media and everywhere as the vaccine rollout continues, as we get closer and closer to incredible numbers. And eventually, I think a couple months from now, from what we're being told, anybody of adult age being capable of getting a vaccine and getting us over the hurdle to herd immunity and all those lovely, beautiful things that a year ago we thought were so far away. And 2 years ago, we had no idea what they meant. No one cared. But now you're seeing people on social media, older people, hugging their grandchildren. This has become a viral trend. There is audio of a woman breaking down after a doctor gave her a prescription she wasn't expecting.
My daughter and granddaughter came to my apartment to give me a little gift, they said, and the gift was the prescription from the doctor, and it said, "You are allowed to hug your granddaughter." Just hugging and crying for the first time in a year.
You got to be honest, that hits you in the feels. You can't help it. As I was playing the audio, I got a little, I don't know, I think it's just dusty in here. But truthfully, this has been one of the more lovely things to see on social media as a response to the world in which we're currently living, because we're getting closer and closer to being out of this thing. And that might be controversial to say. And I think Dr. Fauci said, let's not make the mistakes of the UK that's having a third outbreak. And there's variants that we can discuss and whether or not the vaccine is valuable at beating the variants. And that's all horrible, scary things that I'll leave for another day and maybe a show when Chad's back for him to cover it, not me. Right now, I like to take a second to just enjoy the fact that at least what we're doing appears to be working well enough that older people can start hugging their grandchildren again. 81-year-old woman out of New York, Evelyn Shaw, who you just heard, can break down in tears when a doctor, by the way, the doctor wanted to be a part of this news story. There's no other reason that you write that prescription than you kind of want to be in on it. I know it's sweet. I know it's lovely. I don't want to turn against any part of this because now I'm the jerk in the room. But yeah, come on. I mean, that's akin to what people got mad at the former president, Donald Trump, for doing by signing the stimulus check, something that apparently Biden's not going to do. If you do get a stimulus check in the mail, which really, that's slowing down the process a lot more than any of us need to. If you know how, if you can do it, figure out a way to get the government your electronic deposit information, because people should already have checks. There's people that already have stimulus checks in their bank accounts, as I've read. But if you have to get the paper check in the mail, not going to be signed, not going to have your name on it, which is just the silliest, most ridiculous thing for us to debate or talk. It shouldn't be a news story. I shouldn't discuss it. And I can't help myself, much like this doctor who writes a prescription to hug a granddaughter. Well, how did he feel in the moment? Truthfully, honestly, as the doctor's writing that, he's smiling. He's as happy as everybody else is. He hands it to the family. And then he thinks to himself, man, was I a little too involved in all this? Did we need the prescription pad? Could I just, written actual medical things on that instead? No, you got to be a part, but it's a lovely story. I digress. I should stop saying bad things. Oh, by the way, if anybody's afraid, Texas made it through its first weekend without any COVID limits. A lot of business owners throughout the state were praising the governor and praising the ability to be 100% allowed to reopen and 100% allowed to business as usual. So hopefully more of us are getting there soon. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. I will not often accuse 538 of being at all slanted. They're a fairly unbiased political reporting site, and yet their headline to me, I don't know who wrote this headline, but it made me laugh for a lot of reasons, and maybe it's because they're actually trying to point out the way in which so many are failing now to understand some certain things, but why we should still pay attention to Joe Biden's approval rating is the headline to a story at 538.com. Yes, we should. I can't help but laugh at this. There's no reason that you should ever give up on it. It mentions in this article that former President Donald Trump had the most consistent approval rating of a president since World War II. Not highest, the most consistent. He hovered between 40 and 45% pretty much throughout the entirety of his administration, his term in office. So whether or not that's going to continue, that trend of people approving to a rather close, degree of someone throughout the tenure of, maybe it just indicates how very politically separated we are now. 53% of Americans approve of Biden's current job performance, whereas at this point in his presidency, most presidents' approval ratings are usually closer to 60%. So his is down a little bit. It will be interesting to see how that continues to progress as we go forward here. Obviously, the stimulus checks and the passing of it, and the fact that everybody says, a lot of people tell you this on television, that Americans themselves love the idea of stimulus checks. Well, yeah, I think that's probably true. However, maybe you don't love the idea of one day having to pay that money back. It's like anytime you've ever borrowed money from a relative or a friend, and hopefully you haven't been in a situation like that. But if you have, it's terrible. Because like on the first hand, you're like, yeah, this is great. You're giving me money. I need money. This is good. But on the other hand, you're like, wait, this relationship exists now. And, at some point I got to pay you back. And it's not going to be pretty the longer it takes for that to happen. I think the same might be true for our country and ourselves right now as we continue to get handed check after check and money is, raining down from the heavens to an extent. And I know that a lot of people need it. I'm not trying to completely vilify the fact that a stimulus check exists, because there are people who will be helped by it. And then there's millennial friends of mine who didn't necessarily need the money, did get it, and are intent on buying Bitcoin. So it's all over the place as far as what is and isn't valuable in that world. And someday the bill comes due, as so many people are to say. But 538 continued to press in their article on why it's so important to pay attention to these Biden approval ratings, because if they do take big swings, negative, positive, if things do, I guess, start to demonstrate some sort of true, difference in approval, maybe it's an indication that our society is getting less polarized, and that's probably not accurate. That's not going to happen, one, in my opinion. And two, even the way in which there were time and time again opportunities for President Biden, for his administration, to give credit to the successes of Donald Trump and his administration, and they didn't do it. That is keeping us as politically divided as possible. The numbers are also in as far as TV ratings go. Donald Trump helped television. That is true. President Donald Trump, and even honestly, when he was just a television star in and of itself on The Apprentice, he gets ratings. Howard Stern called him the best radio guest ever. And the reason why is because when Howard Stern would interview then a famous, not obviously current or former president, Donald Trump, he would be really honest. He would say some answers to questions that people didn't really expect celebrities to give answers to long before the world of the podcast would do this kind of thing for so many of us. Because truthfully, that's what's so successful about this other world. Now you get a more candid conversation, and some people were capable of getting that on the bigger platforms for a while, and some guests capable of doing it. But CNN has had the biggest decrease in viewership. How would that feel? If you're a CNN, all the things you said, all the ways in which you handled the administration for 4 years, all the ways in which you did just the craziest of things in some of those press conferences, every single host is down now that former President Trump is no longer president. I wonder how that feels to the business side of it. I'm sure the hosts will tell you that they're happy that, justice was served or whatever it is, that they've gotten the world the way that they wanted it to be with a Democrat in office. And yet the business people would be like, it'd be nice to have a few more people watching. 32% was the decline that compared to the average audience between November and now March. On other places, other stations, other, shows on CNN too, like Primetime with Cuomo, down 28%. although I'd be interested to see how that trend goes. Obviously, all the other stations, though, also down. MSNBC, Fox News, down 11% for Hannity, 5% for Tucker Carlson, only 5%, which is interesting because he is now the enemy to the people on the left. He is the enemy of politicians and all kinds of people, which will continue to be an interesting story that we'll cover in greater detail. But television, news TV down across the board after the loss of the the former administration. And I know that a lot of people all over on sides of the aisle, as far as whether or not you wanted that or didn't want that to happen pre and after the horrible events that happened at the Capitol. And yet, as far as television goes, apparently those ratings, they would not hate to have him back. This story I found tremendously interesting in a lot of ways, not because I drink alcohol every so often, and not because maybe at a time or two in college I might have had an event that I can't exactly recall perfectly. But this story is about a passenger on an Alaska Airlines flight that is now being charged with fined $250,000 for behavior that he says he doesn't remember. This guy said he was so intoxicated when he got on a flight. Maybe there should be a bouncer on every airline that rejects you for being too intoxicated. You know, maybe we need a bouncer. Maybe that's the one thing we need. You can't exactly strap a parachute to a guy and chuck him out of a plane. So I guess if it's in the air and you get hammered on the flight, that's on you. Although hopefully that doesn't happen often. But the Alaska Airlines passenger apparently did a lot of terrible, horrible things. He was apparently passed out at one point too, which I don't mean to laugh. And he allegedly also hit a flight attendant at one point, maybe even multiple times after being told to put on a mask that had fallen off of his face while he was asleep. All of this does not remember. How would you feel to be that person, to be told of that? If you've ever had that experience, which some of us might have had, oh man, what did I do last night? You wouldn't want that to be in the world of you taking a flight somewhere. I can't fathom this either. The charges have a maximum term of 20 years in prison and a possible fine of $250,000, $250,000, if he is found guilty of behavior that he can't even testify to, if you believe him. I do see that this story mentions the fact that he claims to not remember, because that might be the defense you go with. I don't know if there's going to be video, although I'm sure that multiple people took video on it because it's that day and age in which you can. But look, everything he did was horrible and atrocious, and I'm not at all trying to say that a person should be allowed to get this hammered on a flight, but maybe, just maybe, this shouldn't be allowed to happen. One way or another, people should, and certainly the person themselves should take responsibility into their own hands and not get this intoxicated on a flight. But did you get on this hammered, or did it totally happen on the flight? I don't know. But more information to come, I guess, on that story. It's just surreal to me. If he's telling the truth and doesn't remember any second of it, that would be a tough 20 years to spend in jail if you actually got convicted of the entirety of the crime. You don't remember it at all. And especially if you're not the kind of person to get drunk often and do this often, if this is not typical behavior for this person. Now, granted, that's not really a way to get out of committing a crime. It's just something I wanted to highlight because it would be utterly, utterly unique. It's not Shawshank Redemption. You're not going to jail for a crime you didn't commit. You committed it. You just don't remember it. So how much different is it? I don't know. Enough that I guess it could be a problem. Quick break, a lot more in just a bit. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
I can't take it anymore!
Well, get over it. It's time to forge a new path with your very own political cartographer, Chad.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. The headline was coming. We knew it was coming. It had to happen sometime this week, or I guess in the near future. President Biden plans first major tax hike in a generation. This is because of the amount of money that they've been spending, $1.9 trillion, if I need to remind you. And I always feel like Dr. Evil. That's a very dated reference now when I say these ridiculous numbers. Apparently, President Biden is also planning to spend about $3 trillion on some form of new Green Deal-esque policy that'll be coming out in the foreseeable future. Hopefully something that actually does not get approved and pushed through, because hopefully it's a lot harder to do the next time around when you don't just need a simple majority. But we'll see. We'll see how that all goes. but a tax hike will be coming. I actually made a quick reference to this, but truthfully, this is how I feel. The stimulus package is great at the beginning. Like anything else. Actually, there's a lot of ways I could go with this, but I'm going to keep it with the you borrow money from a friend or a relative argument here, the analogy. So it feels good to start. You get money given to you that you feel like maybe you don't need to pay back so quickly. It's not a bank. It's your buddy. It's somebody else. It's casual. They're like, hey, man, pay me back when you can. And if you've ever done that, I absolutely inform you not to do it moving forward, because eventually they want the money back. Anybody that you borrow from, including our government, eventually is like, hey, now we waited a while on that, but we're going to need that money and we're going to need it now. And President Biden already making those moves. He's already starting down that path of being like your friend calling you and just casually mentioning it. At some point in the conversation, you're talking about March Madness. You're not really getting to it. And all of a sudden they go, oh, by the way, do you have that $50 I gave you 2 months ago? I'd really like that back. That's what's going to happen here. That's why, and I know that it's not the popular take right now, but so many Republicans are saying that maybe spending has to be stopped at some point. If you spend $3 trillion on a new Green Deal-esque kind of thing after the world we just lived in, you know what we should be doing after spending as much money on dealing with the pandemic? If all of that money was absolutely necessary, as some people obviously feel it was, stop spending after that for a while. Like anybody that goes crazy on Amazon with a credit card, eventually you got to pump the brakes. You have to figure out a way to pull yourself back. And actually, as I mentioned that, I found an interesting story to tie this to, at least interesting to me. A new study has demonstrated that a credit card purchase triggers the same chemical in your brain, the same endorphins, the same excitement, the same enjoyment as taking cocaine. And the reason why, it's not a purchase in general. It's not buying something and handing someone money that triggers that cocaine-esque response in your brain, but the credit card version is because it was free for right now. Just like that money is probably going to trigger some endorphins in our brains when you see in your bank account that it's just been kicked up a little bit. If you're getting the money, that is, I should say. I know a lot of Americans are, but some aren't. If you're getting that money, it's going to feel great for a minute, but eventually that cocaine feeling is probably going to start to dissipate, start to go away just a tad because, well, you know, like a credit card or like a friend that you borrow money from, eventually you've got to pay it back. I just think it's so interesting. They decided to study this now, too, by the way. The reward network in your brain that are activated by all kinds of rewards are activated by a credit card purchase. The act of putting the plastic credit card in your hand is associated with enjoyable purchases. Maybe it's also because a lot of us make the credit card purchase for something that's maybe a little more casual of a thing, a little less necessary of an item than, say, the thing that is bought with actual cash. I don't know if that's true, actually. I feel like you're either one way or the other. You buy everything with your debit card and with cash. You buy everything with credit cards. But apparently this is getting triggered in the brain. The study continued to explain that we find the activation in the classic reward network. This differentiates credit card purchases from other kinds of purchases and things. Mostly it bears little relation to the price of an item or any sort of value and maybe savings you get from it. In contrast, activation in these same networks is a weak predictor of cash purchases, but it does interact with the price to predict purchases of cheaper instead of more expensive items, I guess. So yeah, the feeling of cocaine in our brain is what you might all be experiencing as you check your bank accounts over the next few days. But the bill is already coming due as President Biden plans to hike up the old taxes, as you've heard from some people probably in your life saying that we're probably going to pay for this. Someone told you that. You ignored it. Now it's not going to. I know everyone here listening didn't ignore it. By the way, I saw this story, if I'm just shifting to workplace things. Spain is now trying a 4-day work week. Other countries have done it. Some have enjoyed the successes of it. Some have said it's bad. I personally don't care. The 3-day, 4-day, 5-day, whatever amount of day work week it is, I just want to make sure that we do the same amount of work. You get the same amount of production done. So many of us have worked from home for so long through all of this that you probably want to keep doing that. I know that there's going to be a fun maybe aspect of being back in the office for a short amount of time, but I doubt that that'll be a long-running feeling. I doubt that you'll, truly hate the fact that I doubt you'll remember this as negatively as maybe we remember it right now when you got to wake up and wear pajamas to work every day. So that is something that we'll see that's interesting. But the 4-day work week might motivate people, maybe in the short term, maybe this in the long term wouldn't be successful. So maybe we need a lot more information here. But at least in the short term, it seems to have the same benefit to a company, the same amount of production. So why not try it out? In Japan, I saw that there was a person who got in trouble and their pay was cut because they left work 2 minutes early. So in Spain, we're pulling a whole day out of the work week. In Japan, you can't leave 2 minutes early. You're in a lot of trouble. Back in the old days of retail jobs and whatnot, they used to have punch in and punch out being a big part of the equation there. So people wouldn't do this, I guess, according to this story. But this guy, I guess he tried to just like kind of sneak out of work. How many of us have done that? How many of us have found a way a minute or two before the day is supposed to be over to disappear and maybe not return back to the office at least every so often? I know that a lot of us have, but this 59-year-old employee, I guess, had decided to do this, and she lost about $1,000, about $1,200 year over year in her salary because of the 2 minute, and it's just a punishment. It's not actually the equivalent of the amount of money she makes in 2 minutes. She's not paid LeBron James money here, although I think that's still very low, actually, for LeBron James money. But the $1,200 is to teach her not to do it. Is that even, I don't know. I'm sure in that country it's okay, but in our country, I feel like you might have more words with a boss. You need to apologize for the behavior, but I don't think you're sacrificing $1,200. But I don't know. Maybe this is the controversy of the day. Tell us on social media. Tell us on our Chad Benson Show on Facebook. Tell us on the Craig Collins Show on Facebook if you want to tell me whether you think a punishment of $1,200 is appropriate for 2 minutes of skipped work in a retail environment where you didn't have permission. Should you be able to be punished like that? One last thing I saw, and I kind of wanted to touch on this for just a quick second, so I'm happy that we have a break coming up in just a bit. But there is a New York Post article about whether or not the office romance is dead because of the potential for sexual harassment claims. This obviously comes connected to any of the conversations about Cuomo, which feel ridiculous to connect those two things together. But I will say that if you are in an office space right now, if you're a boss of any kind, or honestly in an office space and you're just a colleague of someone, odds of a man starting a romantic relationship by trying to, flirt with or something, their female coworker is probably almost zero. I imagine with the news of the day every single day, as it's been for the last couple of years, that a whole lot of people would no longer do this. And I can't count the amount of people I know that met their spouse at a workplace, that met their spouse, in an office environment, and yet you probably will not start to go down that road. So to answer your question, New York Post, yes, I think in the world in which we currently live, in the age of the heightened awareness of these sort of things and sexual harassment claims being what they are in the public space too, by the way, you can be found guilty of something publicly long before you're found guilty of it criminally in a court system. You obviously, I think, if you were anybody, decide not to do this. But that's just me. So there's my opinion, New York Post. Chad Benson Show, Craig Collins filling in. Back in a bit.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Chad will be back toward the tail end of the week. I'm happy to be here, and he deserves the vacation, darn it, because the news is crazy. I have a fun story to get to in just a second about a new form of underwear for guys. You don't see very many trailblazing changes in the world of men's underwear, but yet apparently Hanes has figured something out. We'll get to that in a second, though, because first, I'd like to talk about Chris Christie. He, over the weekend, discussed the vaccine rollout, the vaccine effectiveness, the Operation Warp Speed involvement, and where we're at right now, et cetera. And what I think is most interesting is the way in which he gives this point about how big of a failure it is for the Biden administration, one that said they were trying to unite both sides of the aisle, to not acknowledge. And actually, you know what? Before I get to Christie, let's do this. I know this is old. I know this is from last week, but I know we have it too. This is the audio of the press secretary talking about exactly this. And actually, I thought it was a pretty interesting conversation back and forth because one of the people in the press room asking this question, I know who it is. I don't care. I'm not going to give them credit. I don't know why. Probably because I'm as bad as everyone else in all this. But as they're going back and forth on this, the press secretary refused to acknowledge what seemed to be a pretty obvious thing, Operation Warp Speed helped develop the vaccine. Here, let's hear from that last week just to crystallize exactly how true it is that the administration, the current Biden administration, refuses to say attaboy to anything, absolutely anything, that President Trump might have done while in office.
But on the development of the vaccines, it was Operation Warp Speed that was invented, executed, initiated under the former president. So in the spirit of bipartisanship and unity last night, as opposed to the first comments which spoke about the denials in the first days, weeks, and months, why not just say, with credit to the previous administration and the former president for putting us in this position, we are glad that we have been able to move it forward.
That is an excellent recommendation as a speechwriter, but we...
I love the first part of that answer. That's great. You should be writing speeches for us, I guess, but you didn't, and we don't want to.
The president has spoken to it in the past. He has applauded the work of medical experts and
true. This is true.
Scientists and the prior administration.
That's not true.
And what the purpose of last night's speech was to give an update on what his administration has been doing, what he has done since he took office, the progress that's been made, what the work is ahead, provide a light at the end of the tunnel, and ask Americans to engage in the process.
That's the purpose of the appearance from last week, from Thursday, from President Biden, was to say what he's done, to be as political as any other politician. That's what his purpose was. He wasn't there to tell you the truth necessarily. He was there to put spin on the truth that benefits him, whether it's a lie or the truth, it's still going to be spun in his favor. That's essentially an acknowledgement from the press secretary saying exactly that the world in which we currently live is no different than it was a few months ago as far as the way in which politicians will conduct themselves. Biden at the top of the heap there, Biden doing what everyone else does in not giving any, it's still surreal to me. And I know that it's always crap. I know that every politician, their inaugural address or whenever they speak to us, they promise things they don't deliver on. But talk about a country that needed some unity, and one that for whatever reason we're missing out on, because it's the littlest of things to say that Operation Warp Speed was successful. You're not advocating the entire presidency, the entire past administration's actions. You're just acknowledging the truth. Let's get to Christy.
I participated in a focus group yesterday. Just talking to Amanda about it. 20 voters from around the country who don't want to get vaccinated. And why? They think politics is being played by both sides on this. They think that President Trump rushed it, so that makes them suspicious about the vaccine in general. They think that President Biden, by criticizing in his speech this week President Trump and acting as if the vaccines didn't exist before he got there, is politicizing it too.
And it is. I mean, I will go one step further for Chris Christie here and say it is politicizing it. To not acknowledge how you got to where you got and whether or not it was your administration or another ones that had some of these breakthrough moments that got science to be as successful as it's been right now, to not acknowledge those sort of things, 100% political.
If we want people to get vaccinated in this country, what came clear from listening to these folks yesterday is we've got to get the politics out of it. You know what moved them more than anything else, George, in terms of being willing to consider to be vaccinated? When they were told that 95% of doctors who were offered the vaccine took it. That moved them. What moved them was them saying nobody died from the vaccine and nobody has gotten hospitalized who took the vaccine.
That is a powerful statement. And look, I will continue to say this, maybe to the detriment of myself and even some medical people that listen to the show. I'm not going to judge you if you choose not to take the vaccine. My grandmother offered the vaccine, turned her nose up to it, didn't feel like she wanted to take it. My mother felt the same way. She was recently, much more recently than my grandmother, offered the vaccine and also felt like it wasn't really for her. And I will be getting it. The moment that I'm available to get it, I'm still not, because as some of my friends have called me a normie. That means I have no pre-existing conditions. I'm not in any of the age groups or anything else to get the vaccine early, so I still have to wait my turn. When it's available to me, I will get it, and I do hope that a lot of people get it. For one reason more so than any other one, it is a road to the government acknowledging that the coronavirus pandemic is in our rearview window more so than anything else. Whether or not you feel that's appropriate is fine. I will, talk to you in a bar for hours and hours about that very conversation. But the truth is that for us to get to a point of herd immunity and open everything up all across the country and get back to life as normal, a large percentage of our country needs to take this vaccine. So I'm diving on that sword for all the people that won't do it. I'm one of the ones with my hand up, ready to go. And after Chris Christie gives me some of that information, 95% of doctors who are offered the vaccine took it, and no one who took the vaccine died of coronavirus. All right, then I'm even more so in, as I'm sure many people are. All right, let's shift gears to a story that's a tad bit risky, and let's see how it goes here. Hanes has brand new underwear out there. The headline for this underwear in this article that I found is that it's akin to a bra for a specific part of the man's body. And granted, I used to work on a radio show for a while, the Gary Meyer Show. Gary is a radio legend. And one thing he loved to do, every time we talked about a story that had a specific narcotic in it, if there was a drug mentioned, he wanted a list of other words he could use to not say the drug's name, but to say some of the slang terms for it. This is usually radio friendly, and I did find a list of terms for what this bra harnesses on a man's body, and I'm going to try to throw some of them out here. I have my producer Phil in my ear to let me know how terrible of an idea this segment is. I haven't heard him say anything yet. It harnesses the boys. It harnesses the cojones. It harnesses your grapes, your jingle bells. You know, I don't know if I should keep going. The slappers, the bojangles, the crown jewels. It helps to harness that area. It gives you more support in this area. I haven't seen anything in the world of men's underwear transform for a long time. I mean, you had the boxer, now you had the brief, now you have the brief bra, I guess, essentially. They believe that this will sell well. I don't know if it will. I haven't tried a pair on. I can't tell you about the supportive aspects of it. But have you ever wondered, and maybe this is time to move on from this conversation and take a break in just a second, but have you ever wondered why there's not more support in that area? Why it's something that so many of us free style, I guess is the way that I want to say that, and why maybe it could be different. They've tested it in the man cave setting, they said, according to one of the people involved with the company, saying that they've rolled it out to small groups of people, and this new underwear product is going to have a tremendous benefit to so many of us. And yes, no, I'm hearing you in my ear now, Phil. I need to take a commercial break. Very smart of you. More in just a bit. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
If you're part of the politically exhausted majority, don't fear. Your time to be validated and rejuvenated is here. Wake up. It's the Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins, filling in. Thrilled to be here with you. I saw this story in the news, and I thought it was quite interesting. And in the news, it's probably a bit of an exaggeration. I saw it on Reddit. A young Reddit user was attacked on social media after they admitted that during a fight with their older sister, they took out a water bottle and sprayed their older sister like a cat. Wouldn't let me get a single word in for like 15 minutes was the reason for doing this. And this is two women, by the way. So the younger sister decided to spray the older sister with water. And everybody on Reddit got very mad at them. Very, very mad. The user is Carrot Cake 104, by the way, if you want to go attack them yourselves. I don't know. The fact that this causes any kind of controversy to any human beings at all is sort of ridiculous, in all honesty. I thought that this was the kind of thing they joked about putting in for the debates when people wouldn't be quiet, wouldn't let each other speak, is you just spritz some water. I thought that was one of the funnier ideas that got thrown out there in the world. Just to be clear, it was a light mist to calm her down, which worked, was one of the defenses used by Carrot Cake 104 when they realized the vitriol was coming at them. I didn't know what else to do. She wasn't listening to me, and she barged into my room for the discussion in the first place. Many people, though, not feeling it, not okay with it. I feel she should be mad at her sister for doing this. She should be told to apologize immediately, is one of the very few takes on Twitter or on Reddit that I guess is at least calm. Someone did say that they thought it was a brilliant, effective, and funny way to handle an argument. And maybe that truly is, since we're in a world now, I think it is. I know I've said this before. I'll say it again. I don't care. I think it's because social media gives us the ability to have a one-sided conversation all the time. And yes, I know that eventually people comment on the things you put out there. People respond to it. People tweet back at you. And it's no longer one-sided. But when I log into my Facebook machine, or whatever you want to call it. When I log into my social medias on the old internet, I type words in and no one tells me no or yes as I'm doing it. I get a one-sided creation of a conversation that can be as long as I want. And when someone abuses that right on the world of Facebook, on Twitter, I guess you're more controlled because you got to do it tweet after tweet in a row. But on the world of Facebook, you can post a 6-paragraph essay and it can just be out there for the world. And it actually is also true if you host a radio show like this. I do find myself sometimes forgetting that I need to be quiet and let other people give opinions. But that I digress. That's not important. Let's not talk about me right now. Let's move on from me. I think that that's how this happens. And so you have two sisters in an argument about something that no one even cares what the topic was anymore. And they only care about the way in which one sister got the other one to stop talking and to listen. And it involved a squirt bottle that maybe more of us should contemplate. I know I can't advocate for it. That would be wrong and they'll come after me. But it might just be a way to go. I also saw in other news in the world that Tinder will be doing background checks moving forward to keep all of its users safe. This is something that is sad that it's necessary. I think it's probably a good idea to do a background check if you're not going to do a lot of that work on your own to figure out whether or not you should meet a stranger that you started. Honestly, my first reaction to this story when I saw it is I'm thrilled I'm not single. And I can't imagine how hard it is to be in the world of single people right now. There are other services that already do background check-esque things, including Match.com, OkCupid, Hinge, Plenty of Fish, which apparently are all very successful ones. Tinder decided to partner with one of the bigger groups out there to also get this done. So when you sign up for the dating app, you will be accepting a background check done by an internet company that's quote unquote just to keep everybody safe. It is also weird though, right? Like there is also a dynamic to that where as a person signing up to be on a platform like that to find love and or other stuff, I just think that you might for a minute take pause in the fact that, all right, I don't know if I really should agree to the same level of scrutiny maybe an employer has on me, the same amount of information, because we also know that many of these social media platforms do end up selling that data. Places like Facebook will deny it to your face and Congress's face. But the truth is that there is lucrative money to be made there, so they do it. So if you have a place like a Tinder or any of the other ones, just mass collecting background checks on individuals and also knowing some behavior patterns because of use of the app, there is a way in which we, I think, get back into that world of privacy being utterly important and utterly disregarded by the entire world that is the tech industry out of basically California. But Tinder will start doing background checks on all of the people that come in and I assume people that are already on the app. So good luck to you if you're out there in the world. If you have a reason that you can't be on Tinder, I'm sorry, but that's also odd. And honestly, truthfully, I should say this. There has to be a way to get to know someone well enough via maybe the text and other options that are available at the beginning stages of an online relationship to know who they are as a person. I mean, everyone has a social media page now. There have to be ways for you to background check on your own. I mean, maybe it would be a little weird to start messaging friends of someone you're going to go on a date with. But hey, it could be possible too if we have to get down those paths at some point. Maybe we'll go that road. I did see this too. 83% of Americans say springing forward doesn't really affect their sleep pattern. Obviously, yesterday we jumped our clocks forward. So this morning it was harder for me to get up and do the show because it felt like it was earlier than it was supposed to be. But that's okay. It'll be fine. My whole day is thrown out of whack. But 83% of Americans say it doesn't really affect their sleep, at least not for the first few days. Only 1 in 4 want to keep the current system in place, though. A lot of people would like to see us change to a more consistent time. 54% would rather have daylight savings time all year round. 19% want a standard time year round. I don't care. It can be either one. The thing that doesn't affect me, and maybe it affects more people. I've never worked in the world of farming specifically, or any of the reasons where maybe it'd be valuable to know, daylight times so that it just, when the sun goes up and when the sun goes down, the only thing it impacts for me, if it goes down too early, if it's dark too early in the evening, I just think I'm a little sadder. I think that it might impact your mental state a tad. But other than that, I don't care. Daylight savings or standard time all year round, totally fine with me. I don't use candles to keep lights on in my house like so many people did back when they created this kind of thing. I don't have any need for it. I can roll with either punch and just go from there. I guess since we're in one right now, let's stick to this one, Maybe. How does everybody feel about that? I'd love to hear from you, though, on social media, if the change in time affects you somehow, if you want it to stay the same, or if you really have no dog in that fight. You don't care at all about whether or not the time changes, because it really doesn't matter to almost all of us now. And I even saw somebody on Facebook say, oh, remember to reset the clock on your VCR or something. I think very few of us even reset many clocks anymore. I can't think of that many clocks that I had to change yesterday morning. And I imagine a lot of people are in that same boat too. So there's really almost no impact other than having to remember. And my phone does it for me, that I have to wake up what feels like an hour earlier, but apparently is not. But tell us on social media. Go to the Chad Benson Show on Facebook.com, on Twitter. Tell us on the Craig Collins Show on Facebook, if you don't mind, whether or not you care about the daylight savings time at all, about the daylight saving time, I should say. I should say it correctly. There's no S at the end. Daylight saving time, or if you like standard time, or if this is just a conversation that doesn't matter. Quick break and a lot more in a bit. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Happy to be here with you. Tucker Carlson, a lot of people talking about him. A lot of takes out there in the world. Brian Stelter, probably one of the odder takes. One of the more one-sided takes. No, actually, probably a lot of people are one-sided on this. But let's hear a little bit from Brian on the old CNN over the weekend.
Even before the 2020 election, there was informed speculation about Carlson as a 2024 candidate. Of course, some of Carlson's detractors say, he's just a troll, he's just really good at ticking people off. But isn't that what they said about Trump for years? Yes, Tucker is known to critique Trump and the Republican Party from time to time. This time last year, he was at Mar-a-Lago trying to convince Trump to take COVID more seriously. But Tucker tells the same conspiratorial us versus them story that Trump told. The same they're out to get you story that Trump told for years. It's the paranoid style in American politics all over again.
You know what's so interesting to me about that take specifically, and obviously Tucker Carlson, if you don't know, he actually defended himself. You know what, here, let me play this first before I weigh in on this whole story, because the fear that he might be a presidential candidate in 2024 being articulated by CNN as part of the problem is sort of the biggest takeaway, in my opinion. But let's hear how Tucker responded to what he said was silencing the talk show host, which is a new initiative from the current administration and from high-ranking members of the military after a take he had the day before garnered a lot of responses and a lot of people discussing the ways in which what he said was, not a view shared by them, to put it as plainly as possible. But here, because I don't really necessarily want to get into the take itself, because I don't think that's the conversation anymore. And I know some people will say, oh, how convenient of me to not actually dive into whether or not what he said the day before was right or not. But here, let's hear how Tucker responded to what he said was the Operation Silence the Talk Show host.
Well, it was quite an experience yesterday, being the very first target in the Pentagon's new Operation Silence the Talk Show hosts. Friends called us in concern. Are you guys all right? And for a minute, we'll concede we were almost rattled. Then we realized if the woke generals treat us like they've treated the Taliban, we'll be fine. 20 years later, the Taliban are still here. Maybe we ought to promise the Pentagon that we'll get rid of traditional gender roles on this show, change the pronouns, defeat the patriarchy, and all that. Then they'd send us billions in unmarked $100 bills as a reward. They've certainly done that before. And that might really kickstart our struggling opium poppy business. Something to think about. Anyway, we're fine. So thank you for the concern.
What's so interesting to me about all this, and I obviously could continue to talk about how freedom of speech is important. We all deserve it. It's a fundamental American right. All those things, those are arguments you're going to hear all over the place. Those are important. But when you tip your hat, when you say things about how you have heard that Tucker might have been a potential 2024 candidate.
Even before the 2020 election, there was informed speculation about Carlson as a 2024 candidate.
I think that we're getting very political now in how we report these things, of fear that might be a successful candidacy, that might take away from a return of office to the very popular, according to some, President Biden right now. The so popular indeed that the right seized on the Governor Cuomo story to distract everyone from how amazing Biden is. That's a real headline that's out there in the world too, by the way, which is hilarious for so many reasons. But the truth is, in all of this, that if the real reason, the real motivation for taking down these people that are dangerous to our society, as Ilhan Omar also sort of accuses him of being, then I think all we're doing is politicizing reporting even more, right? All we're doing is taking our views of politics and adding them. We're doing exactly what so many said was so wrong about the past administration, about the former president, President Trump, and why he might have encouraged members of his base out there in D.C. to do something terrible the day in which people stormed the Capitol. All of that is reporting with a political agenda in mind. And it's so different now than it was in the past. I think that for a long time, before President Trump came into office, before former President Trump, I guess I should say, came into office and on the campaign trail accused the news media of being fake, we knew, a lot of people knew, that news was very biased, very one-sided. But when you tip your hat to the fear of him running for office in 2024 and tell us how that is a problem, every single American is given the right to run for. I can run. I can announce it right now that in 2024, I will try to be the president of the United States. Kanye West proved my point without a shadow of a doubt in the last election. If you feel like you want to run, you can run. And so attacking people and saying it's dangerous for them to try to be president, if enough Americans voted for Tucker Carlson to be our next president, then we should say what we've said about everyone before him, every president before that. Give them a chance, accept the voting, take it for what it is. All those things deserve to be repeated again and not part of the conversation now. It is not a slight against him. It's not an attack point to say that he might have been a political candidate in the next 4 years. It's ridiculous to think we have to go down that road where we have to even say that, but I felt like I did. In other news, I saw this story in the AP. The German government has suspended use of AstraZeneca, one of the vaccines that obviously has been touted as very successful at treating or preventing COVID-19, not treating, but preventing infection or at least spread of COVID-19 because of a risk of blood clotting. This is a real story, and I just figured I'd report it. I don't necessarily want to say whether or not it's not something that's obviously happened in our country. This is in Germany. But they feel that there might be some precaution that needs to be taken and some more information that's needed because of a higher risk of clotting after taking the vaccine for some of the people that I guess have been given this vaccine recently. So it's in early stages fear and early stages precaution and a suspension, not a forever stopping of use of the vaccine itself. But it is an interesting conversation for anyone out there that says that there's this reason or that reason or what have you for not getting the vaccine. It's not like the conversation is entirely one-sided. Is it valuable to get a vaccine? Am I telling you that I'm going to get one? Yeah, I'm saying all that. Are a lot of people saying it's safe and effective in our country, not making any sort of decisions on to suspend or do any of the things that now the AP is reporting, at least in Germany as of today, they're deciding to do? Yes, as of right now, all the information that we have available to us says that this is a tremendously safe and incredibly effective thing to do. And yet there are going to be stories every once in a while that support your one friend or whoever it is that says that maybe they won't be taking it. So just to really throw that out there as a fact that simply exists in the world, if nothing else, and you run from it how you want, that is up to you. I will mention this again, that the Grammy Awards were just last night. The ratings were down even more. They continue to go down year in and year out. The performance of WAP, a song that was highly criticized as being live, and I guess actually Cardi B not totally getting the memo that she was on live television, didn't really bring in the ratings like people had expected. It was heavily edited. You can check it out on the old social media if you want to see how they performed that song live on television. Also, Beyonce won a record number of awards now. She is the most awarded female artist in the history of the Grammys. So congratulations to her. And one other, I guess, quick news story, and I thought this was interesting that this is out there in the world in general. But A-Rod and Jennifer Lopez are still a couple. This is something that apparently we needed an update on because there was rumors that they had broken off their engagement. There's rumors that they were done. This was all over social media. Maybe this is the best barometer for how valuable social media as a thing is. You know, if we really wanted to decide how valuable Twitter is when a company takes the opinion of Twitter into its own decision making to change the name of its product or change a logo or change whatever, and they're like, well, a lot of Twitter said that they didn't like this. We should remember that Twitter became obsessed with whether or not Jennifer Lopez was single and done with Alex Rodriguez all over, just trending like crazy. And that's the kind of things that they value on platforms like that. That is the utmost, the story of the day. And I took way too long to get to it, I'm sure, here on my own program this day. But truthfully, for so many of us, maybe it's not all that important. And I'm a Yankee fan. I care about the Alex Rodriguez. I care what's going on. But as of right now, as of the latest reporting, and I can't believe I'm doing it after just ridiculing it so much, they are still a couple. So anyone that believes in love, it hasn't died just yet. More in just a bit. Greg Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
Don't let the Washington Beltway strangle you. This is where the exhausted majority comes to refuel, realign, and reevaluate. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Greg Collins filling in. Thrilled to be here with you. I saw this story, and I envision a world where this actually would happen, where someone goes on television, some politician, and says that new funding, a new $1 trillion has been spent on rolling out a policy to help us detect coronavirus quicker, to get a better COVID test out there with the use of dogs. I'm serious. There's a study out of Belgium. There's a university that partnered with the Belgian army to figure out whether or not a dog could be trained to smell. And we've heard this before, that dogs can detect coronavirus. But here are the results of the story that I found so interesting. First, dogs are very unlikely to give you a false positive, which I guess is true for a lot of things. Although they're so kind and loving, you'd think that they'd all the time greet you in a certain way. But if a dog that's trained to smell coronavirus is going nuts and indicating that there is a active case of coronavirus on whatever person it is they're smelling it off of, odds are they're right. False positive, almost completely unlikely in the world of a dog tester. And with a PCR test or all the latest tests we have for coronavirus, a false positive is much more possible, sadly. Not, to an extreme extent, but certainly not minimal. Also, apparently, false negative tests. That's something that's rather likely in the PCR world because, and I quote, according to the study, those tests often give false negative results because the virus particles break down quicker if they are not transported in liquid nitrogen. You don't have that with a dog. You don't transport anything anywhere. The dog just sits there and smells you. Finally, one last benefit, and I don't mean to encourage the Biden administration and many other politicians to start actually campaigning that we need to spend $1 trillion on this, but dogs can detect coronavirus quicker. A PCR test takes about a week to have sufficiently measurable material that presents in your body. A dog can detect coronavirus within 1 to 2 days of infection. So just throwing it out there, if we're going to follow the science, if we're going to make it as valuable as possible, a dog tester is more likely to have no false negatives, no false positives, and can get a result much, much quicker than anyone else can, than any sort of test can. Just food for thought in the world of us spending more money and then taxes going up even higher. But at least having the lovely feeling of dogs barking at several people at airports who may or may not have corona. Well, probably do, actually, if apparently they're studied well. In other news, I saw that 14% of people are still buying at a pandemic level panic kind of spree. The most popular things to spend extra money on right now are still the same things you've come to expect them to be: groceries, self-care products. I guess paying your bills is one of the things they mention here. We spend more on takeout and more on healthcare than we would in a non-pandemic time. But apparently 14% of us still spending at a high rate. Things that are most likely to be neglected at that time, things like movies, luxury items, video games, clothing, and entertainment. Yeah, the movie industry, man. And by the way, I think it's very odd. There's a brand new Batman movie or Superman movie, Justice League movie coming out. It's a remake of a movie we had years ago. It's going to be released in theaters and on HBO Max. It's called the Snyder Cut. Zack Snyder is the name of the director of this Justice League movie. And I don't want to dovetail too much into the world of nerd superheroes, even though I'm a bit of a fan, if you can't tell already. But how interesting would it be if these streaming platforms start having us remake all kinds of movies right after they've been made? If you get a bad result at the box office, apparently you can go back, chop a movie up differently, and hope for better things. There is a lot of excitement, genuine excitement, for the new movie coming out for those that are fans or didn't like the old movie, that I think this might be a template to see a lot more of this happen. On Twitter, a bug banned people for saying the M word. What M word is it that they were saying? Memphis. Apparently, this bug lasted for about 12 hours. If you put the word Memphis in a tweet, you got a warning and you may have been locked down and or banned. Twitter fixed the problem after maybe someone went rogue. Maybe this was just around the time of the NCAA announcement, because I know Memphis is usually a pretty decent Cinderella team and that sort of thing. Maybe someone at Twitter just doesn't like them. Maybe they wanted that to just go away, so they put it up there. And how interesting, too, in this story to find out that, and of course, I guess this isn't necessarily shocking information, that a lot of the time, the way in which these things are censored by these big tech companies is just a program. Just an algorithm that's running in the background when you're on, and the minute you type in the word Memphis, it tells Twitter to shut you down for however long you need to be shut down until they can fix the problem. It hadn't worked perfectly. Some people did try this out, but apparently after 12 hours, some of the bans had been rescinded. Maybe not all of them. Maybe someone had one too many things to say about Memphis. I also saw this, that a mom got arrested. She got arrested for creating deep fake videos. If you don't know what those are, photos and videos that look real of people that are famous, or I guess in her case, people that she knew that we think are saying or doing something that they're not actually saying or doing. But what was the mom doing? Why was she creating deep fake videos and spreading them on places like social media? Well, she's a cheerleading mom, and she was going after the rival cheerleaders of her daughter, which is sort of surreal to think the way in which this, we've heard story after story about how politically we should fear a deep fake technology being used widely because it could convince you that a politician did or said something that they didn't do or say. But it could look so convincing that you'd believe it no matter what you were told later on, and the deep fake video would start to truly influence how all of us behave. But this 50-year-old woman's like, I just want to take down the other cheerleading squads. I want my daughter to get the medal, and I want to do it any way possible. It's just crazy. Apparently, the videos included the children drinking, vaping, doing things they shouldn't have been doing, all kinds of different activities. And the cops traced all of the videos back to one cheerleading mother. If you've seen any of those reality TV shows, the ones where they follow families that are probably a little bit too into these kind of things, the activities of their kids, you should just know that really, in all honesty, you got to take a big step back. You got to breathe a little bit and not have it matter this much to you. Because to create a deepfake video about a child, I mean, that's just, yeah. But she's been arrested, good, and hopefully there's a harsh punishment for that. I don't usually advocate the harsh punishment, but in this case, I think that because of how stupid the use of that technology was, it deserves to be kicked up a notch. I should also mention that Drew Brees has announced his retirement from football. After 20 seasons, he did look in the playoffs like maybe it was the last year we needed a Drew Brees. And yet Tom Brady, 43-year-old Tom Brady, signed an extension. I can't even say that that's a bad move by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. After winning a Super Bowl with Tom Brady, he is now employed for more years. I was talking to a friend of mine about what eventually causes Tom Brady to retire from the sport of football, and I don't know what does it other than maybe a sack that makes him incapable of playing. I don't think there's any way this man stops playing football. And honestly, for a lot of my life, I've been an anti-Brady guy. I'm a fan of the New York Giants, but as he gets older and continues to play well, I think he starts to be a guy that more people cheer for than against. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm in the minority there. Maybe it's a lot like any of these Cinderella teams in the NCAA tournament that I'm hoping for that maybe others don't want to see win. They want to see Gonzaga be an undefeated team. I don't know. But the longer that Brady plays, the more I'm not going to hate him. And that's just me. I know he's married to a supermodel. I know his life has been about as good as lives get in the world of famous athlete, human person. But to be playing at 43 years old, to have a 2-year contract extension, and to maybe potentially continue to play football at a level that no one at that age has ever played football or any really professional sport at is sort of incredible. You have to tip your hat to them because honestly, it's just the kind of thing that obviously very, very few of us in this world can do. And that's it. That's the Chad Benson Show. This is Craig Collins filling in. I plan to do this for a long time. I'm not retiring either. Talk to you soon.
This is the Chad Benson Show.